The store that my mother eventually acquired was just a little neighborhood grocery store that you don't see very much anymore. Oh, just a little frame building, wood siding, and I would guess it to be almost like, going into an oversized garage. It wasn't very big, maybe 25 feet by 40 feet. Unless you've seen these old grocery stores that were around in those days, it's difficult to imagine what that store was like. As you walk in, there's shelves all around, and from floor to ceiling, stocked with merchandise. As you got near the back was a meat counter, a refrigerated meat counter where you had milk and meats and eggs and that sort of thing. And then an old-fashioned cash register and a small counter. As I recall, all the food was not that accessible to people. That whoever waited on them had to kind of go gather up the food and put it on the counter, the canned goods of stuff off of the shelf. But as I remember it, the person waiting on the customer had to handle most of the merchandise and put it on the counter. A lot of the produce, of course, was just in bulk and had to be put in a bag. It wasn't packaged like it is today. Lunch meat, if you were to buy lunch meat, it would be sliced for you and put in, wrapped in paper. And I remember they had a little tool that they could reach up and take cans off of the upper shelves that they couldn't reach. A little clamp thing they could take things off of the high shelf. And there weren't supermarkets. I remember in Compton there was just one large market in downtown Compton, and that was on the main street. It wasn't until late in the 30s that a second new market went into town. It would be hard for a stranger to imagine what Southern California was like in the 30s and 40s. If they drove through the greater Los Angeles area today, all of the cities, almost all of the cities that existed in the 30s and 40s, they were all surrounded by open space, either wide open spaces or orange groves or truck farms. Called truck farms because the farmer grew vegetables and all kinds of vegetables, cauliflower, onions, carrots, corn, and of course they trucked it to the local market in L.A. Even the large cities like Los Angeles and Long Beach were surrounded by wide open spaces. It was certainly more a small town atmosphere in all of these little cities. If you're ever been to Disneyland, can you just imagine that with completely orange groves? In fact, Art Linkletter, I heard on television one day telling about meeting with Walt Disney, and Walt took him down there to show him where he was going to put in Disneyland and urged Art Linkletter to buy some land. And Art Linkletter thought, the guy must be crazy. Way out here in the middle of nothing? That's the way it was in the 30s and 40s. All of these cities were just scattered and surrounded by wide open spaces. And it was always a small town atmosphere. The streetcar system was really unbelievable. From the Los Angeles City hub, you could catch a streetcar and go clear out to San Bernardino, which is about 70 miles. You could go down to Newport Beach, or you could go to San Fernando, Long Beach, with stops at all the cities in between. From Compton, you could go into Los Angeles, I think, for 15 cents, and down to Long Beach for 15 cents, which is usually the only place I went. I never went too far away from home as a kid. but we certainly took the streetcar into Los Angeles many times to go to any of the half-dozen beautiful theaters in downtown Los Angeles. The Orpheum Theater that had a stage show, Warner Brothers, RKO. There was another one, $1 Million Theater, I think it was called. There were a half a dozen, really the bigger ones. And of course, they were very plush. They weren't like the theaters of today. Back in the old days, these theaters were, so ornate. I mean, they were really beautiful buildings. And of course, there was just the one screen, always a double feature. And today, it's pretty bare bones. When we went to the movies, it was 15, 20 cents, 25 maybe later on, 35. I can't ever remember having more money than that. The big thing we used to do in the summer was go to Compton Junior College, where they had the plunge or the swimming pool, and that cost a dime. Even in the Depression, I could usually scrape up a dime by turning in Coke bottles, getting the deposit on bottles or whatever. But it was a big thing to go to the Compton plunge in the summertime. It was about a mile and a half from home, which we used to walk, and if we had a dime coming back, we could stop and get a mile-high ice cream cone. If we only had a nickel, we could buy a bag of broken cones. That was the way we spent our summertime, except we also played baseball. They had summer programs at the schools and a baseball league. It wasn't, I guess that was the forerunner of Little League, but we did that clear up into high school. It was great fun to go down to Long Beach, where they had the Pike, which was a fun zone. They had the beach, we could go swimming. They had a big plunge, a saltwater plunge in Long Beach. That was great fun. There were girls, lots of girls there, and of course the Navy, there was a lot of Navy personnel that would be there. As a teenager, we would go to the Pike and go to the beach. You could go to the beach either down in Long Beach, which was 10 miles away, or you could go the other direction to Manhattan Beach and Venice, where there was another fun zone. And we used to do that quite often, or we'd take a streetcar into Los Angeles and go to the theaters. As far as boys and girls, and mainly it was at school activities, both in the regular school year or in the summer. Speaking of schools, Compton School District had a unique plan. It was a 6-4-4 plan. Elementary school, grades 1 through 6. Then you went to junior high. There were 5 junior high schools in the district for grades 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then as you graduated from the junior high schools, the 5 junior high schools, you went to Compton Junior College for the last 2 years of high school and hopefully the first 2 years of college. I went to Lynwood Junior High School, which is right next to Compton. I can't speak for the other junior high, but I can tell you that at Lynwood, the emphasis was very strong on American history and civics. At Lynwood Junior High School, no one graduated without knowing 20 dates in American history. We were taught that you had an obligation to be an informed citizen. We were taught that in school. I think the schools are not only failing to teach people how to read, they're not teaching them the proper history of this country.